Okay, so we want to know, where is Brazil? What is Brazil's location? You're looking at our Earth, okay, floating in space, and the UK is, I've purposefully put that at the kind of centre of our map because that's how we look at maps, isn't it? You've got the North Pole at the top of the Earth, and then you've got the South Pole down here. So we've got the continent of Europe where the UK is. Obviously, look, the UK, they are covered in cloud as per usual. And this big continent here, right in the middle of our map, that's Africa. So remember, the equator splits our Earth into two halves, and the equator is found kind of roughly around here, just below this little dip in Africa. It runs all the way along our Earth. And the two halves that the equator splits our Earth into is everything that is north of the equator is the northern hemisphere. Everything that is south of the equator, down here, is in the southern hemisphere. So we want to try and locate Brazil. And remember, when we were looking at our map and we were learning about our continents, we know that this continent is Europe. We know that this continent here is Africa. And South America, the continent that Brazil is located in, is found to the west of Europe and Africa. So we're going to turn our Earth westward. We're looking at the west. So we go all the way round. We've got an ocean here. That's the Atlantic Ocean. We learned that a few weeks ago. To the west of the UK and Africa, we've got the Atlantic Ocean. We go even further west. Then we've got two other land masses, our continents. They are our land masses. This landmass here, it's found in the northern hemisphere, and that's North America. Let me just rotate that up so you can have another wee look. So we've got North America here, we've got the USA, and if we go further south into the southern hemisphere, then you'll notice this recognisable landmass here as South America. So if we zoom in a little bit further, then things become a little bit clearer, and we can see that the countries of South America, we can now see them. We can see Brazil on our map, and we can notice that this white line that goes all the way around it, all the way around here, and down where it meets the South Atlantic Ocean, that's Brazil's border. So that's where Brazil starts and stops. But this, where the land meets the sea, is also Brazil's border. And you'll notice that there's quite a lot of Brazil that borders the sea. So quite a lot of the locations will have coastal areas. There'll be a lot of beaches and things like that. But there's also a lot of other countries in South America. So you've got French Guinea, Suriname, Guyana, Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Paraguay, Uruguay, Argentina, and Chile. Chile is that really, really skinny country that goes all the way down here. The reason why Chile is such a small country, so I'll zoom in a wee bit further, is that there's lots of mountains here. So all this area is quite mountainous. But let's go back to Brazil. So you'll notice that there are quite a lot of countries that share its border with Brazil. The only countries that don't share a border with Brazil are Ecuador and Chile. All the other countries share a border with Brazil. So let's zoom in a little bit further and see if we can notice anything else about Brazil. So when we zoom in a little bit further, we'll notice that these other names start to pop up. So we've got the state of Maranhão, the state of Para, the state of Mato Grosso, the state of Amazonas. These are all states within Brazil, a little bit like how the USA has different states. You've got New York, California, Washington. Brazil is such a large country, actually one of the largest countries in the world, that it's split into all these different states. Some other things that you might start to notice about Brazil is maybe the different colours of Brazil. So you've got these kind of lighter areas here, it's kind of the light brown, but then up in the kind of north west of our map, you'll notice that it's that dark green colour, mostly in the state of Amazonas, this really dark green colour. And the reason why it's that dark green colour is that Brazil and a lot of these other countries are home to the largest rainforest in the world, the Amazon rainforest. So all these areas here that are really dark green, that's because there's vegetation there, there's trees, and the Amazon rainforest covers a lot of these areas. So let's zoom in a little bit further at the Amazon rainforest. Okay, so we're starting to see little towns pop up. So even in the Amazon rainforest, there are still lots and lots of towns here. You can see here in the state of Roraima that it looks like there's almost like a scar on the landscape almost. Can you see that there? It doesn't look natural. It doesn't look like that's a physical feature because of these straight lines. So if we zoom in a little bit further, and we zoom in even further, you can start to see the scar on that landscape a little bit better. And what that is because Brazil actually has a very large population. Remember, population is the amount of people. So a lot of people live in Brazil, not just in the cities, but also in the rainforest. And when we zoom in even further into these areas, you'll notice that this is where people have taken the trees away and they've built houses, they've built roads, they've built schools. And you can see that from very far away, when we were quite far away on our satellite image. But when we zoom in, we notice that that's towns. That's where a lot of people live in this rainforest. So we'll zoom out again. So that's just one little example of a town, but look how many there are in these areas. And obviously they've had to cut down a lot of trees to create those towns. Oh, I'm going to zoom in a little bit further. So you'll notice that not only is this map showing us the human features of Brazil, but we start to see some physical features appear. So the rainforest, that was a physical feature, but we've also got a river here, the Branco River. If we zoom out even further, let's see if we can try and find some more rivers. Okay, so I can notice here that this looks like a river, so I'm going to zoom in. So actually it doesn't look like a river, it looks like quite a dark colour. It looks kind of brown, but it is a river. So you would always imagine that a river would be a blue colour, wouldn't you? But it turns out that this is a river, and it's the Amazon River. The Amazon River is one of the longest rivers in the world. It's not the longest river in the world is the River Nile that runs through Africa and Egypt. But the Amazon River is the second largest river in the world. And the reason why it's that dark, not a dark brown, it's a light brown colour, is that there's a lot of dirt in the river. It's carrying a lot of, in geography we call it sediment in the river. So it gives it that kind of dirty colour. It might be that there was heavy rain and it meant that it washed a lot of the soil off of a slope and it went into the river. But the Amazon River will be very wide. Remember we learned about scale on our map, about when you look at a map how large something is in real life compared to the map. Well, it might look like this river is quite small, but if we were to look at it to scale, it would actually be very wide. So if we zoom in further and start to look at the Amazon River, there it is there. Okay, it's really very wide river. Not only is it wide, but it's one of the longest in the world. So it flows all the way across Brazil. Okay, now that we know that's the Amazon River, we can start to see the length of it and how far it actually begins to flow. And it's not just flowing up here, but you'll notice that you've got another river down here which connects to the Amazon River. So we call smaller rivers that add into a bigger river, we call those tributaries. The Amazon River has got lots and lots of tributaries helping add water to it. So I'm going to zoom out even further and even further, and we can start to see the true size of the Amazon River. So remember that brown line? It probably starts roughly about here, and it goes all the way from the west through Brazil, where the Amazon River finally meets the sea. Let us zoom in and see what that looks like where the Amazon River meets the sea. Where a river meets the sea, we call that a delta. And because it's really, really flat land near the sea, usually the river gets wider and it starts to spread out. Still that kind of browny colour, isn't it? We zoom in and we can start to see the Amazon River. And then as we go further west, we've got the sea. So that was just a wee kind of look at Brazil from a satellite image. Remember, this image has been taken by a satellite in space, so it gives you a really good idea of what Brazil looks like from above. But what we're going to be learning about in this topic is not only the physical features like rivers and rainforests of Brazil, but the human features of Brazil, the towns, the cities, the roads, and most importantly, we're going to learn about the people in Brazil, because there are a lot of cities in Brazil, and those cities, because Brazil has a high population, can be quite difficult to live in. There's going to be a lot of people fighting over what we call resources. So that's just a wee summary, and later on in this topic we're going to look a little bit more about the human and the physical features of Brazil.